Today's episode of Looking Back is brought to you by Amazon. Please go to lookingbackpodcast.weebly.com anytime you want to shop from Amazon. Click the banner on the front page, and out of whatever you buy, Amazon sends back a small percentage of whatever you spend, and it's a great way to help the show out. Thanks for listening, and enjoy this episode of Looking Back. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Looking Back, the podcast on history. On the previous episode, actually, before we get into what we're going to talk about, take care of some business before we really get the ball rolling. If you haven't listened to the previous episode on the Julio Claudian dynasty, I do recommend listening to that just so you have an understanding of the chain of events with the emperors of Rome. If you don't care to or you don't feel like it, then hey, I'm not going to tell you what you can and cannot or should and should not do. That's not how I roll. First off, we are brought to you by Amazon. If there's anything you want to purchase from Amazon.com and you also want to support the podcast, or if you want to support the podcast, there's two ways to do that. The first is going to lookingbackpodcast.weebly.com and click the Amazon banner on the front page. And what that does is that takes you directly to Amazon, where out of whatever you buy, Amazon will send me and send the podcast, let's face it, it's me, will send the podcast a small percentage of whatever you spend, and it's a really great way to show your support there. We are also brought to you by PayPal. Sounds great just saying it. PayPal. Go to lookingbackpodcast.weebly.com. There is a donate button. I'm actually going to that site right now just to double check and make sure. There is a donate button on the front page. You click that link, that will take you directly to the Looking Back Podcast PayPal page where you can donate whatever it is you want. If you want to become a monthly donor, a monthly supporter, that is available as well. Also, first off, actually, I've said first off already. No scripts here, folks, just off the seat of my pants, whatever's on my mind. I really do appreciate everyone who listens, and I have some really great ideas that I'm going to try and get the ball rolling on because we're going to make this something that I can be proud of, or prouder than I already am. So, let's get right down to it. The year of the four emperors was literally a year in the history of the Roman Empire in 69 AD, in which four emperors ruled in succession: Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian. After the suicide of Nero in 68 AD, there was a brief period of civil war, the first Roman civil war since the death of Mark Antony in 30 BC. Between June of 68 and December of 69, not to be confused with the summer of 69, ah, wagga wagga wagga, Rome witnessed the successive rise and fall of Galba, Otho, Vitellius, until the final ascension of Vespasian, first of the imperial Flavian dynasty, which we will get into in a future show. In July of 69, the social, military, and political upheavals of the period had repercussions across the empire, which in turn led to the outbreak of the Batavian Rebellion, which will also be a future show. In 65 AD, the Pisonian conspiracy attempted to restore the Republic, but it failed. A number of executions followed, leaving Nero with few political allies left in the Senate. In late 67 or early 68, Caius Julius Vindex, governor of Gallia Lugoneses rebelled against Nero's tax policy with the purpose of substituting Servius Sulpicius Galba, governor of Hispania Tarraconensis, for Nero. Vindex's revolt in Gaul was unsuccessful. The legions stationed at the border to Germania marched to meet Vindex and confront him as a traitor. Led by Lucius Virginius Rufus, the Rhine army defeated Vindex in a battle, and Vindex killed himself. Galba was at first declared a public enemy of the state. In June of 68, the Praetorian Guard prefect Nymphidius Sabinus, as part of a plot to become emperor himself, incited his men to transfer their loyalty from Nero to Galba. Nero was suddenly powerless, and the Senate was able to declare him an enemy of the state. He fled the city and committed suicide. Galba was recognized as emperor and welcomed into the city as head of a single legion, 7 Galbania, also known or later known as 7 Gemina. This turn of events gave the German legions not the reward for loyalty that they had expected, but rather accusations of having obstructed Galba's path to the throne. Their commander, Rufus, was immediately replaced by the new emperor, Aulus Vitellius, who was appointed governor of Germania Inferior. The loss of political confidence in Germania's loyalty also resulted in the dismissal of the Imperial Batavian bodyguards and rebellion. Galba didn't remain popular for long, and on his march to Rome he either destroyed or took enormous fines from towns that did not accept him immediately. In Rome he cancelled all the reforms of Nero, including benefits for many important people. Like his predecessor, Galba had a fear of conspirators, and he executed many senators and equites without trial. The Praetorian Guard were not happy either. After his safe arrival in Rome, Galba refused to pay them the rewards that the prefect Nymphidius had promised them in the new emperor's name. Moreover, in the start of the Civil War of 69, on January 1st, the legions of Germania Inferior refused to swear allegiance and obedience to Galba, and on the following day the legions acclaimed Vitellius, their governor, as emperor. Hearing the news of the loss of the Rhine legions, Galba panicked, and he adopted a young senator, Lucius Calpurnius Piso Lucanius, as his successor. By doing so, he offended many people, and above all Marcus Salvius Otho, an influential and ambitious man who desired the honor for himself. Otho bribed the Praetorian Guard, already very unhappy with the emperor, to his side. When Galba heard about the coup d'etat, he went to the street in an attempt to stabilize the situation. It proved a mortal mistake because he could attract no supporters, and shortly afterward the Praetorian Guard killed him in the Forum along with Lucius. Otho was recognized as emperor by the Senate the same day. The new emperor was saluted with relief. Although ambitious and greedy, he didn't have a record for tyranny or cruelty and was expected to be a fair emperor. However, his initial efforts to restore peace and stability were soon checked by the revelation that Vitellius had declared himself imperator in Germania and had dispatched half of his army to march on Italy. Vitellius had behind him the finest legion of the empire, composed of veterans of the Germanic wars, such as Germanica I and 11 Rapax, Rapax. These would prove to be the best arguments in his bid for power. Otho was not keen to begin another civil war, so he sent emissaries to propose a peace and convey his offer to marry Vitellius' daughter. It was too late to reason. Vitellius' generals had half of his army headed to Italy. After a series of minor victories, Otho was defeated at the Battle of Bedramum. Rather than flee and attempt a counterattack, Otho decided to put an end to the anarchy and committed suicide. He was emperor for a little more than 3 months. On the news of Otho's death, Vitellius was recognized as the emperor by the Senate, and granted this recognition, he set out for Rome. However, he faced problems with his reign from the very start. The city was left very skeptical when he chose the anniversary of the Battle of Alea in 390 BC, a day of bad auspices, according to Roman superstition, to ascend to the office of Pontifex Maximus. Events would seemingly prove themselves right. With the throne tightly secured, Vitellius engaged in a series of feasts and of banquets and triumphal parades that drove the imperial treasury close to bankruptcy. Debts were quickly accrued. Moneylenders started to demand payment. Vitellius showed his violent nature by ordering the execution and torture of those who dared to make such demands. With their financial affairs in a state of calamity, Vitellius took the initiative of killing citizens who named him as their heir, often together with any co-heirs. Moreover, he engaged in a pursuit of every possible rival, inviting them to the palace with the promise of power, only to have them assassinated. Meanwhile, the legions stationed in the African province of Egypt and the Middle Eastern provinces of Judea, which was now modern-day Palestine, and Syria, had acclaimed Vespasian as emperor. Vespasian had been given a special command in Judea by Nero in 67 AD with the task of putting down the great Jewish revolt. He gained the support of the governor of Syria, Gaius Licinius Murcianus. A strong force drawn from the Judean and Syrian legions marched on Rome under the command of Muscianus. Vespasian himself traveled to Alexandria, where he had been acclaimed emperor on July 1st, thereby gaining control of the grain supplies from Egypt. His son Titus remained in Judea to deal with the Jewish rebellion. Before the eastern legions could reach Rome, the Danubian legions of the provinces of Rhaetia and Moesia also acclaimed Vespasian as emperor in August, and led by Marcus Antonius Primus, invaded Italy. In October, the forces led by Primus won a crushing victory over Vitellius' army at the Second Battle of Bedriacum. Surrounded by enemies, Vitellius made a last attempt to win the city to his side, distributing bribes and promises of power where needed. He tried to levy by force several allied tribes, such as the Batavians, only to be refused. The Danube army was now very near Rome, and realizing the immediate threat, he made a last attempt to gain time and send emissaries accompanied by Vestal virgins to negotiate a truce and start peace talks. The following day, messengers arrived with news that the enemy was at the gates of the city, and Vitellius went into hiding and prepared to flee, but decided on a last visit to the palace. There he was caught by Vespasian's men and killed, and when they seized the capital, they burned down the temple of Jupiter. The Senate acknowledged Vespasian as emperor on the following day, December 21st, 69 AD. The year had begun with Galba on the throne. Vespasian didn't meet any direct threats to his imperial power after the death of Vitellius. He became the founder of the Flavian dynasty that succeeded the Julio-Claudians, and died of natural causes as emperor in 79 AD, with his famous last words, Vae puto Deus fio, dear me, I must be turning into a god. On the next episode, we will get into the Flavian dynasty. This one is going to be unbelievable. I want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the wonderful support. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other.
That's the end of my show. Donk.